Welcome to Circle Podcast, brought to you by Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us throughout the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community. Welcome to Urban Unwitches, a podcast to educate, inform, and expand the pagan community. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches, and listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. You can also join us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches. Now, back to the show.
Oh, and the gelfling that just moved in with us is a computer elf. So he's going to take a look at my tower. He thinks that it's probably just got some wonky settings in there, and that's why everything is all messed up. So he's going to take a look at it. And I really like his computer monitors because they're curved, and so I want to buy some.
Yeah, Tony has those. He has two that meet in the middle. And so he's got a cockpit kind of situation, but he didn't pay for his.
Am I not supposed to respond?
He called up some person and said, "Hey, how can I get these monitors for cost?" And the guy goes, "Sure." And then within 2 days, they showed up.
Okay. So what you're saying is Tony didn't pay for the cockpit. Well, that's good for him, you know.
Well, that happens a lot. It happens a lot in the AV world. Like, that's how they woo people.
Oh, okay.
Salespeople will do that.
Okay.
And they write it off as he's trying out the product. Right now, my biggest suitcase has some product in it that's all like, and Tony put it in my suitcase because my suitcase had wheels, and the travel case they sent it in didn't have wheels, and he needed it for a job. So I don't even have, my biggest suitcase is out of commission because it's got audio crap in it.
Gotcha. Oh, we're recording now. We're actually live on. Okay. That's okay. I just realized that we took a left turn at Albuquerque and I wasn't aware of it. Thank you, Dayquil. I'm going to warn everybody today that because pursuant to the holidays, I have been infected with every single plague known to man. I'm fairly positive I could test positive for Ebola right now. So I'm going to try real hard to keep up, but I totally missed the subtle cues that we were talking about Tony, and we were actually on the podcast talking about podcast things. So you may need to get road flares to get my attention today. I'm just going to toss that out. So
hey, this is my new sweater that I made.
It's really pretty. I was going to comment on it. I love that color. Like, okay, so help me with this because even though I know how to sew and all that fun stuff, I'm self-taught. So some of the terms I don't always get right. Is that technically cable knit? What makes cable knit?
Yes, this is cable knit.
Okay.
And
Okay.
cable knit is anytime you have a repeating pattern that's raised.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
So this one has a repeating pattern in the middle. It has repeating patterns down the side. It has repeating patterns down the arms. All the places.
Nice. I bought a cable knit sweater from the interwebs, which I knew was going to be a problem because nothing from the interwebs ever fits Kyler. Like I've just got this, my dimensions are all multi-dimensional, but the it came in and like through the chest and shoulders it fit really well. And then nowhere else did it fit really well. And it's almost like a tank top. Like it's for some reason this thing is ridiculously short. Like I've got a long torso, but this thing is like I feel like it's one of the outlet offerings. Like it's really short, and I'm not the kind who shows belly button. Like I figure I'll just save all of mankind the hassle because I don't walk around wearing midriff cutoffs. Not my particular style, and not in cable knit. A cable knit cutoff, I don't know that I've ever seen one of those. But so I'll just commission you to make me something in the future because I can trust that you'll at least cover my love handles.
You better believe it. That's why I get the measurements so that I know how long to make it.
Friends help friends cover love handles, guys. That's what they're there for. I don't know. I don't know, Dia. I don't know how today's going to go. We're going to give it that college try.
We're going to give it a college try. I have, my big news is I have organized my office. Now, you can't, what you see behind me is vastly organized and stuff, but what's off camera, it was a totally different. It was like walking into two rooms when you came in. There was the off-camera crap, and then there was the pretty behind me, so that I don't have to put up a green screen. Oh, look, I still have on my crafting picture. Let me get rid of that, and this one too.
Like, you had such a lovely halo. The extra light reflecting off your hair, you look positively angelic. It may have also been the Dayquil. I'm not sure.
It's probably the Dayquil. So anyway, I actually bought desk organizers that fit under my desk. And now I have all this stuff that I've had for a long time, but didn't use because I couldn't get to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
no,
very nice.
I know.
And I might buy two. I only have one right now, but I might end up buying another one. But if I buy another one, I'm going to put crochet crap in it.
So there is a thing that I may have mentioned to you like many moons ago when I bought it on Amazon, and I every time I suggest on Amazon, I always feel like Bezos guilt, like why am I contributing? But at the same time, it's stuff that I can afford that I really like. So it's
Yep.
almost like a Chinese medicine cabinet, but larger. It's about 5 feet tall. It's about 4.5 feet wide, and it's each of them have like 16 drawers, and they're super lightweight. They are perfect for crafting and for people who are like makers. They've got like this weird wood grain. It's like it's the drawers are cloth, so they've got like some give to them, which I actually like because if you make stuff, nothing packs easily. Like crafting
Right.
supplies never pack easy. So I liked it so much I got two. So now I have 32 drawers, and so now that I have an actual like crafting room, I've got a workshop, the walk-in closet, I've got one on either side. And so now I have like a walk-in storage space with shelving above it, and it's perfect. Like everything that I use to make stuff is there. So now that room is not organized. Chris made me promise that whenever I lose 3 days organizing my stuff, that I would wait until the rest of the house was set up. And other than the garage, that's where we're at. So by the end of this week, I'm going to walk into my Narnia closet, and 3 days later, I'm going to come out, a son of Adam and Prince of Care Paravel or something.
I want that link, man. I've been
Yeah, I'll
looking for
find it. Yeah.
something to put yarn in.
This would be good for yarn. Yes.
This sounds like it would be good for yarn.
Yeah. Remind me, what we can do is FaceTime after and I'll walk you through it because it's
Oh,
nice.
that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll add it to my
Just
list.
make sure, just make sure the dimensions and everything are right. But they had different sizes and different styles. So the one I got's like 16. So look at us. We're shopping instead of podcasting. That's how today is gonna go. This is today. Yes. Okay. Oh.
It's true. It's true. So other good news. We are the number one podcast at Circle Podcast, y'all. Have made it so. And we have been number one for about 30 days. So
you like us. You really
like us. So I'm very excited about this turn of events. And the funny thing is, this is from our mostly from our advertising. We also entered Facebook, but we did it.
She made me. Oh, she made me sign in. I had like a vestigial account so I could use Messenger, and she made me actually interface with Facebook, and she made me admin on stuff, and I felt dirty after. I had to go like light a candle and do a whole cleansing. It's a thing.
But we've had a lot of people who are really happy that we did it.
Yeah.
So we're posting on Facebook now, which also means we're posting on Instagram, which we were not before. So
Hmm.
there's a double reach happening. So that's good. And outside of that, I'm just excited that we're getting the downloads that we're getting. You guys are great. I appreciate it. I don't have any shout outs this week. Oh, we also started on YouTube. That was the other thing we did. That's right.
I love that you mentioned that like it was an aside and not the thing that sent me into a cataclysmic panic for 3 days. We're just gonna toss that out as an aside. Like, also, the thing that gets me, okay, I get it. The internet allowing people to be their worst selves since 1997. Totally get it. We put everything up, and by and large, our comments have been wonderful. Okay, we've gotten
Yes.
we've gotten several in there, and I promised myself, Dee and I had this long conversation that when we went on YouTube, Kyler would never visit the comments section. I work in retail, and so I will occasionally visit the Google reviews section. It's mean. People are just mean. They hurt people's feelings. It's not good. But I promised I wouldn't. So the very first thing I did was break that promise and go to the comments section. And by and large, I love the comments. But the very first comment we got was so completely unnecessary. And they suggested to put in a 70s laugh track, which is never a good idea. If you have to generate a laugh at your joke, it shouldn't have been a joke in the first place. Like, I'm sorry, just as somebody who likes to think of themselves as at least moderately funny, I know I'm not ready for stand up, but I've been known to throw out a quip or two. I am not putting in a laugh track. My pride wouldn't allow it. I'm just tossing that out into the ether.
Well, I think that what was bad about that comment to me and was that it was our first podcast. So they're making assumptions about all of our podcasts because of our first podcast that we put on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's unfair. I was just like, you gotta listen to the rest of it. It's
Right.
it's not, that one thing is not indicative of the whole thing.
Right. But I mean, by and large, our comments are pretty wonderful. Like we've
Yes.
had a couple of folks like bring up specific points of history. There have been a couple of corrections, which again I really appreciate because like yes, I've taken college courses, I've gone through seminary programs and all that, but we're talking a breadth of like 10,000 years of history, right? So like the human brain without reference text in front of you is going to get things wrong. They're going to misspeak. And I actually love it because our listeners, they correct in a nice way. They bring it up. Like we had one gentleman actually ask about fairly esoteric dualistic religion, which it's the first time I've actually engaged with this in like a while. And of course, immediately went down a rabbit hole. It got me thinking about it for the first time in probably 10 years. And I started reading on it again. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. They did this and this and this. And that's how this happened. So, you know, Alice in Wonderland nerd holes. I love it.
Yeah. I've liked our comments. And we especially like it when you're funny because Luddite's gonna
Yeah.
Luddite.
Okay, so the AI is evil. That TikTok was 100% bound to get a response from the AI bros out there. That's a thing. They are so. It's almost like okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but born again Christians, like when they've refound the love of Jesus, they want everybody else to have the love of Jesus, and suddenly they're right there, and you need to know Jesus too. And it's like that with AI. Like if you love AI past all bounds of reason and rationality. And if you don't like AI, you're like, oh, I don't like it. It's kind of creepy. I don't like the idea of a computer outthinking me. But people who are pro AI are hard pro AI, and I'm just like, ooh, you're bringing a lot of intensity to this. I wasn't really prepared for that. I'm going to sit over here and eat my pie. Okay.
Yes, I agree. The only person
Yeah.
I've met who is really strongly, passionately against AI is Michael Hughes of Magic for the Resistance. He is He
Mhm.
writes about it in his book. He's very serious about his dislike of AI,
Mhm.
and the things that it does to intellectual property, especially. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, as a traditional media artist and a digital artist, I'm right there with him. Like it's awful. Like that's the reason I left. I don't know if I'm really allowed to say like major brand names. We do it with Amazon a lot. We'll have to have a conversation about that so I know what I'm allowed to say. But it's Adobe. You can beat me if you need to. I used Adobe software for years and years, and like Photoshop was my digital art medium. And then
mhm.
they snuck this thing into their terms and conditions where if you use our software, we have partial intellectual ownership. We can plug this into our AI to train our AI. And I'm like, oh no, hell, you can't. I pay a monthly subscription. That is as far as your ownership goes. And it's a very large subscription too. Like it's much more expensive than it
Yeah,
needs to be.
it's very expensive.
Yeah. So I actually ended it took me 2 weeks to get all of my art off of their servers, which of course is off their servers, but I removed it and they throttled down on it. So it took forever for me to actually get my art off of Adobe's cloud so that I could end my subscription.
Mm.
Yeah, it was rough. So why are we here today, Dia, before our tangents become the entire experience?
Oh, yeah. I guess we have been running our mouth for 10 minutes.
It's only been 10 minutes. We're actually doing pretty
It's only been
good.
10 minutes. That's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
We have decided that we're going to interview each other, and I'm going to interview you, and then you're going to interview
Mhm.
me. That's what we've decided to
Yeah.
do. And that way we can get to know, you guys can get to know us in a little deeper level, and more information about us. Maybe hear some different stories that you've not heard from us before. So
Mhm.
that's what we're doing. And Kyler's first one is a soft pitch. How did you come to paganism? See how soft that is?
It's like a hacky sack. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you teed that one up while I'm medicated. That'll get me warmed up. So I've told the story a couple of times, like, and it's a true story. Like, literally, the first time I ever sat down and used the internet was to look up the definition of the word Wicca, and I misspelled it 3 times. But the internet, even baby internet, because this was like 1996, 97, was smarter than I am. It was on Netscape. It was on Netscape. Netscape hasn't been a thing for a hot minute. Like it was not dial up, DSL. It was the compute the library, my
Right.
high school library had DSL. That's how long ago this was. Like for the younger folks, I could say I did this on a Commodore 64. They wouldn't know what I was talking about, but they would believe me. That's not true, but yeah. Um, by the late 90s, the Commodore had long since gone away. But the yeah, I overheard something in the hall. Now I had had an interest in the occult for forever, like movies, books. I was a very avid reader as a kid. So I loved fantasy, I loved science fiction, that like creative well of the mind. Like that theater place was what I loved. And also, by and large, I was really awkward in high school. I know it's difficult to imagine Kyler being awkward in a southern town, especially in high school where everybody's so suave and stylized and ready for the world. Um, it's seriously the only thing that could have made it better was horrible acne, which that was the one thing that puberty was kind to me on. In the 6th grade, I went from being tiny, though not for my age, to enormous. I was like 6 feet overnight. It was ridiculous. I was head and shoulders above everybody else in my class. So you always saw me coming. I was big and ungainly and awkward. It was wonderful. Super great experience. Kidding, y'all. It was traumatic. It was high school. It's always traumatic. So yeah, I get on there and I look it up, and what followed was basically a recipe to make sure I had no friends, but because I was funny, even though I didn't know I was funny, I did have friends, but they were the other people who had no friends. And so I was the awkward Southern gay Stranger Things guy, but I didn't have telekinesis, which I am still butthurt over. Okay. I could I could not move things with my mind. Now, as an adult, I recognize never give me the force. I was driving the other day and Chris called me out and flat out said, you can never be a Jedi because you would force flip cars off the road. And I would. I recognize this. I wanted to be a Jedi my whole life. I would be a Sith in 10 minutes on I 5. That's all it would take. Um, I love it when you get stuck between a yawn and a laugh, and like no sound comes out, but it looks like you're having the time of your life. So yeah, I found Wicca and immediately exhausted the ink cartridges. The librarian, who was a fundamentalist Christian, Mrs. Bird, glared at me when she saw me coming every day, every time, every day. She would glare at me if she saw me in the supermarket because I completely exhausted her ink cartridges. I had this red floppy folder filled with the most ridiculous printouts. So all the tables of associations, the
Oh,
how-tos, every spell of intention, everything. Like that was my little book of shadows, and it was ridiculous. 90% of what was in it was factually incorrect, but it was a good launching point to make absolutely certain people knew I was that kid. Also, I was chunky, and so I wore black, never realizing that that made people think I was goth. To this day, my mother thinks that I was goth in high school. I still don't think she understands what the word means. So, yeah,
I can't imagine a Goth Kyler.
because I wasn't goth, y'all. Black is slimming, and I was shaped like a pear. So, like, it was a thing. I mean, I'm still shaped like a pear, but now I don't care. I made a rhyme. Um, so yeah, like after like the first year and a half is when I met Poppy, and that was when she was very knowledgeable. Poppy was Poppy was an extremely learned person and one of the smartest people I've ever. And so she took weird, awkward me and made me into much more factually accurate, awkward me, and kind of set me on the path to becoming who I am today. So yeah, that's
Nice.
that's how I got into paganism.
Was Poppy Brit Trad?
Oh no, Poppy! The idea of Poppy being Brit Trad. I think one of the greatest sadnesses in my life is you'll never get to meet Poppy because that woman, you and her would have taken over the world together. You are hyper organized and she is chaos personified, and by your powers combined. Oh my God, she was lovely. Poppy was so she was the mom of my best friend in high school, and she had had Mike later in life. Now, we've mentioned Stranger in a Strange Land multiple times. My background, my first ordination was through Church of All Worlds, which is named in honor of the church in Stranger in a Strange Land. Um, Michael Valentine was my best friend in high school. Valentine Michael Smith, the main character of Stranger in a Strange Land, she named her son after her favorite character, Michael Valentine. Um, One of the coolest people. He was the closest equivalent I could find is your Sam. He was funny. He was sharp. He was analytical, inquisitive. He took no shit from anybody. And in many ways was somebody I aspired to be. So Poppy gets on the phone with me that first time because Mike tells her that I'm pagan or I'm Wiccan or whatever flavor of the week I was at the time. And it's like your Laurel King Hamilton story. She's just like, blessed be. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. And it went from there. But she was as eclectic as you could get. She had tried just about everything at some point or another. She was the very definition of a green witch, and a kitchen witch. She would use whatever she had on hand, and she was incredibly resourceful. And if you would spark her curiosity, you would get to sit at her beautiful. She had this huge hardwood, like family of 12 size table. It dominated any room it was ever in. And she would just kind of decompile everything she knew on a topic, and usually over very, very garlicky lasagna, which is one of the many things I love. She actually taught me to love lasagna. Oh, yeah. In her words, there was no such thing as too much garlic. And yeah, no, she was just lovely, but definitely not formally trained, definitely not Brit trad. She used to say she was no better a pagan than she was a Christian. Um, I saw how effective she was at paganism. She could have been Pope. So she was very effective for not having actually had, especially for not having had that sequential training that you get from like a tradition step by step approach. But she had filled in every potential hole in her knowledge. There was nothing she didn't know something.
Hmm. That
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
Oh yeah, she was
And
phenomenal.
Poppy passed away when?
So Poppy passed, I believe it was 2017.
Mm,
Yeah, that sounds about right. So Poppy was a type 2 diabetic. She was very, very bad at managing her diabetes. And as she
mm,
started to get forgetful, she started to make more mistakes with her medication. And her husband was not my all-time favorite person, put it that way. Like there was not a lot of love lost, but he was a trucker and he'd had a heart attack and then he stayed home to take care of her because once you've had a heart attack as a trucker, nobody will insure you. So that's pretty much the end of your career. Um, so he didn't do a very good job of helping take care of her, and so she kind of slid down, and eventually she developed vascular dementia, and
mm.
that was the first time I actually got to encounter that disease, and so I learned a lot from watching that decline. But the funny thing is, every to the right way to put this, every major learning opportunity that I have had in the craft has by and large been traced back to a gift from Poppy. She was like a gift of the universe into my life. Like the gods were just giving me what I needed. So I found CAW because Poppy, who I graduated, we remained friends for a while. I moved away. We kind of lost touch because both of us had no object of permanence. So like we weren't in each other's line of sight. So a couple of years went by and I kept having this thought, I need to try and find where she is. I miss her. But then something shiny would come along and I would be distracted. But one day I get an email from Poppy and she's like, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. I have found this group and I think you'd like them. Would you like to get some coffee?" We went and got coffee and she introduced me to Luke. And Luke became my mentor in my first ordination program. And I stayed connected to CAW. I actually got my first ordination on Halloween of 2009. And then for the next few years, I worked with CAW. And then Luke started to transition into something else. And I went back to school. Um, and then a couple of years after that, and Puppy and I stayed in touch. We'd gotten really close again, and I'd moved back to so that we were geographically closer. And we had much the same friends. Our social circle had just kind of slowly begun to meld together again. And then she's like, "Hey, I found a new group," because the CAW group had transitioned and was no longer what it had been before. And she was like, "I found a new group. I'm not sure about it. I think they may be Brit trad." For Poppy, this was in italics and not to be assumed as a compliment because Poppy was a little bit of an anarchist. So she came up from a tradition where she hated being told a tradition. I mean, she had the habit of hating being told what to do. So the idea of
Right.
having to follow group rules was anathema to her being. So she's like, "I think they're Brit trad, but I'm not going to hold that against them until I actually know." So we go out, and that was when I met my next teacher, Cami, and that opened a whole different journey. So, and then it was shortly thereafter that the vascular dementia, we realized that's what she had, and she had to go into care because the first couple classes that she was able to attend, she wasn't really able to retain anything from. She knew that she
Mm.
loved the energy, the feeling of being there, but she couldn't retain any of the information after. And so within the next 5 years, she was gone.
Mm.
So it was rough, but she was one of the greatest blessings in my life.
So why did you join up with the Brit Trads?
So hmm, that that is simple and long. Do you want the simple or the long? Because I've already been
Yes.
rambling a lot. So okay. So short story, I really like knowing things. Um, and I'm willing to put up with just about anything to know things. It's kind of my number one addiction, that and sweet tea. Just ask Chris. We have several gallons in our spare fridge. I've got backup tea. Yeah, that's how bad it is. So what had basically happened? I grew up in a very southern town. Uh, Donkeys. I mean, that's been a whole thing. I woke up to the brand of donkeys. One of the very first facts we ever tossed out on the so my family has two halves. One are dirt poor farmers and people with severe dyslexia who have trouble reading. Like, then the other half are all school teachers. And intellectual prowess is a number one thing. It's this really important thing. And so the woman who helped raise me, my mom was working two and three jobs when I was growing up. So she wasn't able to be physically present as much. And so the aunt who helped take care of my sister and I when mom was busy working, she, I'm not going to say she was an intellectual snob because she wasn't, but she valued knowledge. She was one of those teachers that just valued knowledge. Now, no matter what our relationship became later because of politics and morals and all that, she instilled in me a love of culture, a love of art, and a desire to know as much about everything as I possibly could. The irony being, she gave me every tool I needed to succeed in the craft and hates nothing more in this world than the fact that I'm part of the craft. Um, that's usually the irony of children. You prepare them in the best way that you think they're going to go forward, and then they're like, "Ha, these are your plans, surprise." Um, so because I was neurodivergent, I'm very high performing. So I have a like high IQ. I learn very quickly, but I'm very easily distracted. So even though I'm a high scorer for testing, I did not do well in school because homework requires discipline, and I had none of that, like none. And now, mind you, this is in the mid '90s. ADHD was barely a word. Nobody understood it. And the medications that they put you on, it was the bad kid disease. It was
Mhm.
something that West Coast people it was a label that West Coast people gave to kids who were undisciplined. That's what people on the East Coast thought. And so when I remember my mother asked my aunt if she thought maybe I had ADD or ADHD, and me and my sister, and my aunt looks at her and she says, Pam, those kids ain't got no ADHD. They're just bad.
Mm,
That was the response. Now, what she meant was we were not well behaved. We weren't bad kids. We were unruly and we didn't listen super well because children should be seen and not heard. Remember, it was very much in this era. And so growing up, I knew that I could be anything that I wanted to be. I could be a doctor. I could be a lawyer. I could be a teacher, a university professor, anything. I just couldn't quite make it happen. So the idea of having a sequential understanding of something, being taught something methodically, like a college class, was a preset. It was a precursor. Even though I was very knowledgeable, I had been trained by multiple people, um, and there wasn't much I couldn't do in a circle. I still felt like imposter syndrome. Like, I mean,
right.
yeah, imposter syndrome is debilitating. And so I had it. I had it bad. I'd been teaching classes for 5 or 6 years. I had lectured at two different colleges. I mean, I had a great reputation as somebody who knew their stuff, and yet I still felt like an imposter. So when I found this tradition, I was like, they're gonna give me, I guess the legitimacy is the right word, but it wasn't
Yeah.
even that I cared. It wasn't that I cared so much about the legitimacy of the name. For me, it was I needed to know that I didn't have any holes in my knowledge base because you don't know what you
Right.
don't know if you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's what opened that chapter. That's what allowed me to kind of put my own anarchistic, anarchistic, not anachronistic. My own little chaos goblin back in his box long enough to drink just enough of the Kool-Aid that I was able to get that training, and I actually found a community that I love. The Odyssean tradition, they are a beautiful group of people and they are Canadian by and large, and sarcastic and wonderful and funny and loving. And they are everything that Canadians are supposed to be, with the most wicked sense of humor I have ever seen. Like anybody who tells you that Canadians are nice, they are polite. And as a Southerner, I recognize that. You can be polite and vicious. And that is one of the things I loved about my Canadian friends, because when you put a group of super smart, very subtle people in a room, whew, it's like being on set for an episode of Golden Girls. Very fast banter.
So why did you leave?
Distance. So lots of little things, some of which I just can't go into because it's tradition stuff. But I moved to the West Coast. Also, COVID hit a lot of traditions that had distance members very hard because you couldn't gather. Like communities are communities because they're communities, and part of a community is you're together. They were 13, 1,400 miles away. I was in Florida. They were in Toronto. So that's how you know you've actually been there. You call it Toronto instead of Toronto. Like Toronto is a place in Canada. Toronto is where you live if you're Canadian. Um, it took me a while to realize exactly how to say it. I still can't get it right. But the that was a lot of it. There was a lot that was happening at that time. And then when we moved out here, I did try to re-engage. The problem is between the time difference and my own object permanence, it was very difficult. And my spirit had been pulled in a different direction since 2011. So this was in 2022. So for 11 years, I had been the center point of support for a community. I built a church. We were a 501c3. I had to learn tax documents. Like I helped build this community even while I was doing my own like neophyte first degree training and all of that. And so I I got to a point where I didn't realize that I needed a change. And it was very difficult for me to decide to leave it. And there are still days I wake up and I'm like, I miss them.
Right.
Like yeah, I wake up and I'm like, wow, I miss them. I want to see them. Um, and at some point now that Chris and I are established out here, I do want to take like a week trip to Toronto and catch up with all the people because they are wonderful. Plus, there's this amazing French bakery called Pan Perdue, Green Street, that is molto bene. I used an Italian phrase for French bakery. But that was a
I caught that. I was like,
yeah,
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 that was Italian, but okay.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, he's cosmopolitan, y'all. He knows stuff from different places. Um, but yeah, it's actually the first place I ever had quiche, and it set a standard for quiche, y'all. That like was it's hard to beat. It was the salmon and roquefort quiche, and I
Ooh,
will write poems about this quiche for the rest of my life. Um, Also, I may not have. Okay, we didn't have quiche growing up. Like that wasn't a dish we made. So at some
right.
point, I did the thing I do with my mouth when it makes words that aren't right, and I called it a quiche. And now in my house, we call it quiche, and that's not accurate. And we've had guests who look at us like these hillbillies don't know what quiche is. So,
Well, so we've talked a little bit about how you came to paganism. We talked about Poppy, who had a very big impact on your
mhm,
life. We've talked about the Brit Trad and the Church of All Worlds, COW.
uh-huh.
Um,
CAW.
CA, oh yeah, CAW.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, with an A. I
yeah.
didn't put that in there, but okay. It's not
Well, it's
cow,
caw,
it's
not
caw.
cow. You do not want Oberon mad at you. I'm just saying.
um, so I've always wondered why you never talk about a father. I've heard you talk a little bit about uncles, but never
Okay,
fathers.
girl, you going for that full-on Southern hee-haw episode of Cops drama. Okay. So this is what done did happen. My dad was a trucker. My stepmother's name is Bunny. There is a mathematical equation there that is as white trashy as it sounds. Um, my dad, we will completely gloss over his own childhood, which was magical and special. Um, my dad was a bull who liked to jump fences, and my mother did not deserve all of that, but he was one of those dads who loved the idea of having kids, didn't know how to be a dad, and like he never had a roadmap himself. So I try not to judge him too harshly. But everything he did was just the worst possible way you could do something. So it's hard not to judge him. Also, he's a really funny redneck who looks like Father Christmas. I can honestly say my dad's a very handsome man, even in his later years, and he is hilarious. Like he is way funnier than I am. He's got this whole like southern slow molasses charm thing going on. I've never completely understood it, but it apparently works on the ladies. Like they just adore him. Maybe it's because I'm not interested in it working on the ladies, so I don't understand it. But the yeah, that was lovely. He actually found out. So here's a funny story. He found out that I was gay while we were sitting in the courthouse because the IRS was taking him to court for 50 grand in back child support. And my mother, who had waited, and this is why I love her, because one day she's going to put out her greatest hits, and it'll be the greatest hits of Petty LaBelle. She is ridiculous. We're sitting there, and my sister, my sister was a waitress at a establishment where ladies would dance. And so my mother pops up with, I don't know what I ever did to have a stripper for a daughter and a homosexual for a son. Because we were bantering, like we were back and forth. Mom didn't care that I was gay or what Kenna did for a job. She just wanted us to be happy and safe and secure. But she waited. She waited, and that was her delivery. The only thing that could have made that better was if it was on Father's Day. Like this man had been so awful as a dad growing up, like completely absent any kind of emotional or even real financial support. And she finally got a moment because my mom, and I will always love her for this, I will always respect her for this. No matter what trifling, shady trailer park nonsense my dad pulled, she never spoke a bad word against that man.
Right.
She never badmouthed him in front of her kids. He had not that problem. He had no problem blaming everything in the world on her. And there were more than a few times where I said things as a kid that I, as an adult, apologized to my mother for because he definitely used us to get a few pokes in on her. Um, but yeah, by and large, he wasn't there. And so I talk about my uncles more because not only are they larger than mine, I don't have a small personality in my family. I am one of the smallest personalities in my family. So I want you to imagine what that looks like. Imagine those family reunions, okay? And not all of us have. So, like, we have very country people who all have some kind of either dyslexia or transferred learning disability. So we're not academic, but we're really smart, which means there's a lot of sarcastic humor going on all the time. That's what happens when you have someone who is intelligent but not book learned. They just sit around being sarcastic at each other, and that's hilarious. But my uncles were kind of all like surrogate dads for me, and so my actual bio dad, he was in and out at various points because he would make grand gestures, reappear for a while, and then disappear. So that's why we don't talk about dad too much because by and large he's a bit embarrassing.
I understand. I can
Yeah.
understand that. So it's often said that funny people are laughing because they aren't allowed to cry. Is that you?
Mm. If you wanted to flick the ear of my trauma, you could have just said, "Hey, trauma." So yeah, I mean, I I used I used humor. Like it was a defense mechanism, but it was a way of fitting into a place that fundamentally from the ground up I could never. My humor, there's a reason why in the South the term funny uncle can mean multiple things. I'm the hilarious uncle. It can also mean something very bad, right? Like, we're waiting on files to be released because of one kind of fun. But the the concept, the archetype of the funny Southern gay, the Leslie, oh, what was his name? The short guy
Oh,
who played the
Nielsen?
no, Jordan, Leslie Jordan. Leslie Nielsen is Qui-Gon Jinn, girl. Star Wars, you got to
Sorry.
know that. He's
Oh,
the new, yeah, Leslie Nielsen,
sorry.
next of kin. Okay, this tells you exactly who I am. When I think of Leslie Nielsen, first it's Star Wars, and then it's next of kin with Patrick Swayze, where they're hill people who fight the mob in Chicago. That's my upbringing right there. Star Wars and next of kin. Um, no, it's funny. It's like when I devolve into some academic tirade about something, my accent largely goes away. And then you ask a question about my childhood, and I'm like, "Y'all come on back now, you hear?" It's ridiculous. So if I wanted to fit in with my family, I had to, and I loved my family. Like they were, like I said, they're all characters. They were great to be around. As I got older, that became more and more difficult because I could no longer play that part. And I think that, if you've made it this far in this rambling episode of ours, I think a lot of folks who find themselves drawn to the craft can probably relate to this, where you have to play a part and it's very difficult to feel like you get to be yourself. You can be your true, authentic self. I remember there was a gathering we had. I was always very careful to keep my pinnacle under my shirt. I didn't need to broadcast it. It would have caused me a lot of problems. I wasn't ashamed of my faith, but I eventually got sick and tired of having to explain to everyone what it was and having to make euphemisms because it felt fundamentally disingenuous. And I try to be as honest a person as I can. So we're at this family gathering and I'm playing volleyball of all things. And at some point it pops out. And I have a cousin. Never liked him. I just want to be clear. Never liked him. He married into our family. My cousin Tina married him. He was never my favorite. I'm just gonna toss that out there. He looked at me as like, "Why are you wearing the sign of the beast?" That's how he said it. The sign of the beast. And I forget exactly what I mumbled, but I just walked away. I was done with the volleyball game. Walked away. Um, but I always felt like I was having to play a part. And there came a day where I realized they were never going to make that allowance for me. They were never going to, for them, not acknowledging something was the most they were ever going to do. And that wasn't equitable. That wasn't fair. They had expectations for me, but no expectations for themselves.
Right.
And that's a lot of Southern culture. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what I do. You just have to follow the rules, or you're a sinner, or you're wrong, or I'm going to put
Right.
you on a prayer list. I was forcibly put on multiple prayer lists against my will. I asked them to take my name off the prayer list,
Yeah.
and my aunt refused. And I eventually said, "You are going to take my name off of this prayer list, or else." Now, mind you, this is after she said she was going to do it. And then I found out a year later that church had still been praying for me every Sunday. And I told her flat out, "You were going to take my name off of this prayer list, or else I am going to make a spectacle. You do not want me to make a spectacle." Because in the South, you don't make a spectacle. Like Southern
Right.
shame is the one goad everybody responds to. Um, and she was a little more uptown. She was afraid of what the trailer kin would do if they decided to make a spectacle. And I was definitely a proud trailer American. So she knew if I wanted to show my ass, like she knew my mother, we know how to show our ass. Like it's a genetic gift. So yeah, that was that's where a lot of it came from. My humor was a way to fit in. It was a social lubricant. And then as time went on, I realized humor is actually a really good way to teach. If you can engage someone
Mm.
enough that they're laughing, they're going to remember what you said. People remember jokes. And so when I'm up there and I'm teaching, somebody once told me, and this is the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life. When I am teaching in front of a class, I turn into Robin Williams. That's what she told me. And I put that in the little locket in my heart, and I kept it there forever because Robin Williams is like, if I go expecto patronum, he pops out in the form of Genie. So did you just write that down to make a TikTok about later? Is that what you just did? I caught you. I caught you, little Miss Subtle. Um, yeah, no, that was, but that's where the humor came from. It started as a defense mechanism, and then through lots of therapy, I realized it for what it was. But by that point, it was a really good shtick. Like it's a fun way to teach, and it's a fun way to put people at ease. I I may have mentioned this at one point. Luke Luke Moonok was one of my all-time best teachers, one of my best friends. He was also one of the most clueless human beings I have ever seen in my life. He had no situational awareness and he had no concept of greater context. There is a part of Florida called Chiefland, Florida, and it sits right on the county line of Levy and Dixie County. Dixie County, Florida is everything that those words elicit when you see the images in your mind. He put up posters all over town. Witchcraft today. Come see how the craft is manifested in your life in the 20th century. It was the 21st century. I neglected to point this out to him because he would have reprinted the posters. That it was an open community like presentation. It was at the College of Central Florida at one of their satellite campuses in this little like bum portion of Florida where like you hear the banjo music and a gunshot in the distance if your window's down at a stoplight, the one stoplight in this town, right? So he puts these posters up, which means this room is full of people who automatically do not like me. That man tried to get me hate crime. He didn't realize he was doing it, and like I when I tried to explain it to him, he's like, well, if we never educate them, they're never going to know. And I'm like, we can't educate them if we've been hung, Luke. You're not the one in front of the class. So
Oh,
I tap danced that day. I had people, the questions they threw at me were so vitriolic, and I had to turn them into jokes. It's a way of transmuting anger. And if you can make someone who doesn't like you laugh, they've lost the battle. They've lost the battle right there because laughter is a catharsis. It's a catharsis of fear. It's a catharsis of pain. If you can make someone laugh, you have built a camaraderie, and that is a foundation to build understanding on. And I actually walked away from that presentation with a deeper understanding of that. Because I could have been hit with a lead pipe or tagged with a cattle prod in that parking lot. Luke almost got me killed. And killed. You see, I'm going back into the memories and
yeah,
now my
yeah.
brain is
You've been
evaporating.
falling
Yeah.
in and out all podcast.
hmm Yeah, you did this to me. This is your fault. So yeah, no, that was easily one of the scariest experiences of my life. But it humor saved my skin that day.
Yep. So I know this about you. My question is, so many pagan leaders were at one time certain they would lead religious groups and tried to do so in a Christian setting. Was this you, and when was this?
Very young and very yes. I was a member of the Southern Baptist. I went to the First United Baptist Church of Williston. There we go. It was the White People Baptist Church. It had the biggest building and the tallest steeple, and it had the most modern look, which means it was built in the 60s. Um, it was this big, like octagonal building with stained glass at each of the facets. It was a very pretty building, very, very noticeable. We'll put it that way, right in the heart of my hometown. And it was the place where the people who had money went. Not
Mhm.
that people in Williston had like a lot of money, but like the haves went there, the nice cars, the Sunday dress and all of that. I was in the choir. I knew that I was a deeply spiritual person, didn't understand exactly what shape that would take. Well, the decision to leave that path was decided for me when the choir master found me necking with his son in the empty baptismal pool. And so I beat a hasty retreat from the First Baptist Church in Williston, Florida. Listen, I was like 13. All right.
Oh,
There are things happening chemically within your body that erase the common sense and a sense of self preservation. And Joey was pretty. And that was the only place that didn't have line of sight. We were just talking. And then the next thing you know, we were necking. And dad found us. He got to live. He got sent to Hotlanta actually to live with an aunt who apparently dad didn't know was a ultra feminist lesbian, and Joey became a drag queen. So apparently, I wasn't the source of the gay. The gay was pre-existing. So
oh my
not
goodness.
communicable, guys.
Um, Joey is a drag queen. That's awesome.
That's the name of church. That was the name that he went by as a much younger man. It changed quickly, but yes.
That's good.
Oh yeah, loved it. It was a seriously. I've told that story and people look at me like there's no way that's for real. I'm like, I kid you not. Listen, dramatic things create dramatic me.
So we have probably time for one more question. And
It's already
luckily,
been an
that's all I
hour.
have left. And my question is, many people who are fiercely friends with others do so because they lacked that fierce friendship at some point in their lives. Is this true for you? And you've covered this a little bit already.
Yes and no. Um, my my approach to friendship is born out of the fact that as a kid I was a lonely kid. Um, but it also comes from how I was raised. I when I look at the people who are mine, they're my people. I take care of my people. That's and this is probably a little misogynistic. It's probably a very old world way of looking at things, but it was how I was raised. I am friends with some of the most competent, hyper competent people. They are brilliant and they're funny and they're beautiful and they're just wonderful people. They fill and expand borders and the boundaries of my life. They make me more than what I am just by being in my sphere. And they're my people. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for my people. I don't know how to not be as intense as I am. I come from intense people. I come from passionate people. I've struggled with the black and white of it my whole life, like learning to live in the nuance of the gray area. But at the end of the day, when I'm pushed back to my most baseline, they're my people. And woe betide the harm that would fall them. Like they're my people. And when someone enters my heart, like I'm a very unusual gay man, with the exception of one. I am still on really good terms with all of my exes. I don't casually date. I've had long-term relationships most of my adult life, and I am still good friends with them. Like one of my all-time best friends, he's down in California, hour long, 2 hour long conversations because I know that if I needed him, no matter what, he'd be there. If I make a phone call to Wisconsin, where my very first ex, my first love lives, he'd be on a plane. He is particularly ineffective. I don't know what he would do if he got here, but he'd be on a plane to come out and help. I mean, he'd probably complicate the situation because he's a chaos goblin, but he'd be out here to help me. And my first husband got ordained so he could marry me to Chris when we got out to Washington. That's the kind of relationships that fierce friendship can build for you. I met a funny, incredibly gifted woman at my very first pagan event. And now I host a podcast with her because she's as fierce a friend as I am. And when you live your life that way and you recognize the value of people, you take the time to get to know people, and you give yourself the grace to believe that they can care just as much about you as you do about them. You begin to realize that all of the snapshots of joy in your life have their faces in it, and they build a beautiful, beautiful life so that when you close your eyes for the very last time, you can look back, and while you may not have no regrets, you will not feel like it's life wasted because of the smiling faces that you filled that life with.
Yep. Yep. I think
Damn, that
that's
was heavy.
true. That was heavy,
I
but
didn't mean to
I
go
think
there.
it's true. It's true though. So from your life experiences, think up a resiliency corner, and I'm going to give my resiliency corner. First of all, I have two things this resiliency corner. The first one is laugh loud. Don't giggle. Like laugh from the belly and be that person, because there is joy and there is mental health in laughter.
Mhm.
And so I would recommend that. And my second one is this: fierce friendships are based on never keeping score.
Mm.
And
Yes, please.
so I think you should consider whether or not you're keeping score on your friends. And if you are, then what does that say about you? That's
Mm.
my resiliency corner for today. What's yours?
Well, the first is a response to the laughter comment. There is a reason the witch's cackle exists in the craft. It is one of the freest, most beautiful sounds because that is the moment when you let go and you become your truest self. That is strength and vulnerability and everything all rolled into one. And the first time I heard it, I'm like, wow, this is. I remember it was a small little circle, and I heard it, and I'm like, that's a different kind of laugh, and it was beautiful. And I've actually only been able to laugh that hard and that loud a few times in my life, and every single one of them are some precious moments. My resiliency corner is take a moment, look around you, and see the people in your life. See the people that you love. Maybe light a candle and thank the universe for lining up so that they got to cross your path. And sometimes it's not even the people that you ascribe to love, but the people who brought you challenges. Life isn't all joy. Sometimes we become more because of the pain and the sorrow. And obviously within bounds. Don't thank terrible people for being terrible people, but take a moment to say thank you for the lessons and for the fun and the joy and the laughter. I think that's my resiliency corner.
I always end by saying, have a magical day.
Hail and farewell.
So mote it be.
Thank you for listening to Urban Unwitches. Please reach co-host Kyler Petrie and Rev Dia at urbanunwitches@gmail.com. That's urbanunwitches@gmail.com to suggest topics for shows or comment on past episodes. Please join our Discord channel, Urban Unwitches Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Urban Unwitches. Follow us on YouTube at Urban Unwitches to watch all episodes. And listen to all our past podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. Rev Dia is a witch for hire as an officiant, life coach, astrologer, geomancer, and medium, and can be reached at www.revdia.net. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Circle Podcast, presented by Circle Sanctuary, and produced for all who follow nature-centered paths. Join us throughout the week for various programming connecting with the community around the world. Please don't forget to watch for updates on the Circle Sanctuary website at www.circlesanctuary.org. Follow us on Facebook at Facebook/Circle Podcasts. We can also be found on your favorite podcast hosting sites, such as iTunes, Spotify, and others. Until next time, many blessings.